For the record, Mary is known for her work during World War II. She's a civilian being interviewed for the Veterans History Project. Mary, where were you living at the time that World War II broke out?
In Arlington, Vermont.
Arlington, Vermont?
Arlington, Vermont, yeah.
And how old were you at the time?
The war broke, about 19, I think.
So you were a young thing. Do you remember the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Oh yes, definitely.
What do you remember about that?
I was, my mother was a telephone operator in the small town of Arlington, Vermont, and I was working that Sunday in the telephone office, and when we got the news, so.
And how did you hear about the news?
I don't remember. Somebody called, and so everybody started calling, wanting to know about it, but I don't.
What was the scene like in the telephone office?
It was just a small town, a small office, and my mother was there, and I was there, and I think my sister was there, and that was it. We were all excited, very about that happening.
What were your feelings about the war?
Pardon me?
What were your feelings about the war?
Well, at that time, the women felt that they were trying to do things for the people. We did knitting, and we sent blood over and stuff like that. We really felt that we should help.
Now, your claim to fame is for your posing for Norman Rockwell. Can you tell me about how that all came about?
Yes, Norman Rockwell brought his family and bought a place in Arlington. He came from New York. He had 3 boys, and he wanted them in school and get started before the war got going. And so they bought a place in Arlington, and they entered into everything there, and they were just like one of the people there. They were very, very cooperative, very nice, very pleasant people.
So you knew the family?
Yes, definitely.
Being a small town, did everybody pretty much know everybody else?
That's right, yeah.
How small was Arlington?
I don't remember.
Like a couple thousand people?
I think it was 20,000 or something like that.
Now, how did Norman Rockwell come to choose you for his famous portrait?
Well, he after he moved there, he used a lot of people from Arlington. He'd see people, and he had an idea what he wanted, so he would ask if you could sit for him. So he used to come in. He or his wife Mary came in to pay their bill in the telephone office, and so he knew who I was. So he just called one day and asked if I could come down and sit. He had a photographer that took all the pictures. You sat there for a while, and while they took all these pictures, and then he would take what he wanted, like the big arm and the big leg and stuff.
Now, when he asked you to sit, did he tell you what he had intended? Did he tell you that he was intending to do a Rosie the Riveter photograph?
No, I don't. He just, he probably did say something, because he had all the clothes to put on. That I had on the dungarees and the shirt and all the things that went with it. And then he would cut out what he wanted, the big arm, the big legs, and put it on his easel, and then he would draw from that. So you didn't have to sit while he was painting. And that's how he got the bigness of the woman.
So you mean you didn't really look like that photograph?
I
That
know.
portrait?
No, I certainly didn't.
So the time you actually spent in his studio was long enough for the photographer to take photographs.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Then, when Rockwell was painting the picture, did you come into his studio at all during the painting?
No,
Did you see
no.
it as it progressed?
No, I went down, he called me another time. He wanted to change the color of the blouse. I think it was white at the time, and he wanted to change it. So I went back down, put all the clothes on. It was a navy blue blouse. And they took all the pictures again. And so you're there just a few hours. And then that's it. So, then he does the painting from that. So then when it came out on Saturday Evening Post, he called me to tell me that he apologized for making me such a large woman.
Did you know that that's what you were going to look like?
No.
When was the first time you saw the new you?
Well, in Bennington, Vermont, right nearby, bigger town, there was a shop there that put the post out on the sidewalk in front of their place where they had all the newspapers and everything. And I didn't. That was out. I didn't see it. I just heard about it, but I didn't see it. Actually, I never saw the picture until when he left Arlington and was living in Stockbridge, and my sister was in Pittsfield, Mass. That's where she lived, and she called and told me that they were going to have the painting there on display in Stockbridge. And so we went down, we had a private showing, and that's when I first saw the big, large picture.
And what year was that? Was that still during the war?
No, it was after the war.
You never saw your photograph on the Saturday Evening Post
No.
until after the war? Weren't you curious?
Yes, yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, I suppose I was. A young girl, I didn't pay much attention.
So did people in your town see it and say, Mary, I saw you on the cover of Saturday Evening Post?
Oh, that's when I started to wonder what it was all about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did other people in town know that you had posed for the picture?
Oh, yes, yeah. Small town, they know who. But actually, a lot of them didn't until it came out on the Saturday Evening Post. So.
And what did you think of that experience? That must have been exciting for a young girl.
I didn't think much about it as a young girl. It didn't bother me, really, until later when people started, talking about how big and everything. But at the time, I just felt it was nice to be able to sit for Norman Rockwell. And, because he became very famous. And so that's when I realized that it was quite a thing to sit there for him.
Did he pay you to model?
Yes, I went down twice. I said, change the blouse. And so I got $5 a sitting.
So you got a total of $10
I
out
got
of the
$10.
experience?
Mm-hmm. That's what he was given, all the people, $5.
What did your mother think of you sitting for Norman Rockwell?
Oh, she was very pleased, yeah.
Now, I understand that some other members of your family, did you say, sat for him for some of his other paintings?
An uncle of mine sat for all 4 freedoms.
Did Norman Rockwell discuss with you at all why he chose the symbol of Rosie the Riveter?
Oh, no, not really. He did mention it, that he had an idea about, the book Mein Kampf, and I didn't see the rivet machine until it came out on the cover. I didn't have to see that or anything. He did those things afterwards. He had an idea, and so I sat, and then he painted what he wanted.
So, now, were you ever actually a riveter?
No.
Have you
No.
ever used a rivet gun?
No.
Have you ever seen a rivet gun?
Yes, when I was at, flew out to Jay Leno's program, and he had one, a very light one, and so he had me sit with that when he
what did you actually do for work during the war? Did you stay working in the telephone company throughout the war?
Yes, yeah, and then I went on to school. I waited until my brother got out of the service, and my sister was with, her husband was in the service. So when they came back, I went on to school.
Now, your brother was in the service?
Yes, yeah.
What branch of the service was he in?
He was Navy.
And do you know where he was stationed?
No, I can't remember.
What feedback did you get from your brother during the war? What were you hearing as a civilian? You never actually left your town of Arlington?
No, I didn't leave. I was there, but
Throughout the war. So what were you hearing back on the home front from your brother and neighbors and other residents?
he was his wife to be, his fiance at that time. They had, before he left, they had kind of a code set up. So when she get letters from him, she would come over with them, and we could try to figure out where he was at that time. So then he never came back. We didn't see him again till the end of the war. He was gone the whole time.
Did you hear any other news of the war being in the telephone office?
Oh yes, and in the papers and stuff. We knew what was, trying to keep up with it. Mm-hmm.
So now you said that there were some other things that you were involved with during the war, giving blood and knitting.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
We on the blood. Mary Rockwell took 4 of us that had sat for Norman Rockwell, and we drove to Troy, New York, to give blood that was sent directly across, and that's one of the things we felt was helping. So that, and whatever you can do.
What sacrifices did you make on the home front to help support the war effort?
Well, mostly my mother, because the food situation, the sugar, you didn't get butter, and gasoline was very scarce. You could only get so much gas at the time.
What other things?
Pardon me?
What other things? Can you recall any other things that you had to do without or change your lifestyle?
Well, that was about it. You didn't do too much in that small town.
Now, at the telephone company, what were your duties?
I was a telephone operator, and just helped my mother. It was just a one board operated, so there was one person at a time working. So it was my mother and I at the time.
And then you said you went on to school. What did you do for schooling?
I went to dental hygiene school in Temple University.
Do you recall the year you went?
40.
Was it after the war?
Yeah,
Was it after the war ended?
right after the war.
And what were you studying for?
Dental hygiene.
And did you graduate from Dillon
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as a dental hygienist?
Mm-hmm.
Did you live there while you were going to school?
Yes, at the school at Temple. Yeah.
And then when you graduated, did you return to Arlington?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and worked for a dentist in Bennington.
How long did you work for him?
2 or 3 years. Then I got married.
And then what did you do?
After I got married, I went to with my husband to Whitman, Mass. He was in the shoe business. So we lived in Whitman, Mass for a long time.
And I know that you have at least one child because Mary Ellen's here now. Do you have other children?
Yeah, I have one other girl and 2 boys.
During the war, can you tell me what a typical day would be like in your life?
When I was,
So you were
I was
you were living in the small town of Arlington with your family?
with
You were
my mother.
still
Yeah.
with your mother at the
'Cause-
time? So what would a typical day be like for you?
Well, first I was in high school, and then and also part-time at the telephone office. So then typical day was working and just doing things around the house. There weren't too many things we could do. We didn't have movie theaters in Arlington, and of course with the gas situation, we could only go once in a while into Bennington to do things. So we just our friends, when we got together and in the evening and did knitting and things like that for the war.
What did people do to entertain themselves?
Well, we'd have different things at like church suppers and dances and on the green. That was about it. There wasn't too much to do.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events that occurred?
Well, I can't think of too many right now.
You will after I turn the camera off. Did you keep a personal diary?
Some bit, yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember hearing about dropping of the atomic bomb?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Where were you at the time?
I was in Arlington.
Can you recall the experience? What it was like when you heard the news?
Yes. My husband knew General Sweeney that was in the plane that dropped the bomb. And so we knew about it from that, my husband and I.
No, were you married at that time?
Yes, yeah.
And was your husband in the service then, or was he out of the service?
He was out of the service by then. Mm-hmm.
What was your feeling on the bomb?
It was a sad thing to see so many people, killed, but it did help our boys. I know one of the boys from Arlington was in London at the time, and they were getting ready to come to go further on. I've forgotten where, but then they got the word, and so they were able to come back here.
Do you recall the day the war ended?
Yes, yeah.
Can you describe where you were, what you were doing?
Not really too much. We were just thankful it was over, that's for sure. But we didn't do too much about it.
Was there celebrating in the town or anything like that?
No, they didn't. No, we just ourselves.
What was it like in the small town of Arlington after the war when the soldiers started coming home?
It was great, to see them, and they were happy to be there, and so it didn't change too much, because there weren't that too many boys that came back that, and they didn't lose any from Arlington's, which was good. So.
Oh, that is good. Back to Rosie the Riveter, the famous portrait from Norman Rockwell. Was everybody in your town aware that you had posed for that, and that you were famous, and that you were on the cover of Saturday Evening Post?
I don't think they thought too much about it being famous at the time, no. Actually, it was after the painting during the war, and the Four Freedoms went around to help get bonds for the, and to sell bond. And then that's actually when Norman Rockwell got more famous, and people knew him much more.
Now, Rosie the Riveter then traveled all across the country trying to raise money for bonds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you were famous throughout the country. Did anybody contact you about your portrait?
At that time, no.
When was the first time somebody contacted you to find out what the real Rosie was like?
Well, I think it was when Stockbridge, in Stockbridge is the museum. They started getting in touch with me, and they wanted me to come and talk, to the people, and they had I think it was a celebration for Norman Rockwell's so many years or something, and they invited my whole family there for the weekend, and his oldest son Peter was like the commentator, and they had been different parts of the country, and ended up back at Stockbridge Museum for celebrating so many years of Norman Rockwell's stuff.
When the Rockwells left Arlington, did you stay in touch with them at all?
No, I went on to school, and so I never did hear from that. It was shortly after that Mrs. Rockwell, Mary Rockwell, was sick, and so she was down in Stockbridge at this place an awful lot of the time, a great deal of the time. So he was going back and forth there, and he had the boys in school. So he felt that he should be down there, so that's when he sold the place in Arlington and moved to Stockbridge.
How did sitting for Norman Rockwell affect your life?
Well, after it came out and stuff, every time you went someplace, somebody would recognize who it was, and there was a lot of talk and about it.
Now, I understand that your children used the topic for show and tell at school.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So you were famous with your children's teachers. What did they do? Would they bring you in or bring a photograph in?
Pardon me?
Did they bring you into school as show and tell, or did they bring photographs?
The photographs, yeah, the different things. No, I didn't go.
Did Norman Rockwell ever explain or tell you why he made you so much bigger in the photograph than you really were in life?
No, see, he just had the idea of what he wanted, and for some, pick me.
And added a lot of muscles to you.
Yeah, right, I didn't at the time, but
Now, I understand as a young woman you were quite beautiful, and I think I remember reading something about Norman Rockwell saying that. You recall that?
Hmm. I have his,
You
a
have-
letter from him,
You have a letter from Norman Rockwell?
if you want to see it.
Yes, I would like to. Right, Mary, we were talking about how your children used you as a subject for show and tell, and I understand that because of that, and the kids were asking you for things, that you contacted Norman Rockwell, and he wrote you a letter in 1967?
That's right, yes.
Can you read that letter?
Dear Mary Doyle Keefe, thanks for your note bringing back the past. I knew you took a lot of ribbing when I painted the picture and only wish I had some copy I could send to you, but to be honest, I just haven't. As to the original of the picture you posed for, I have no idea where it is now. The kidding you took about the picture was all my fault because I really thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. But then I did have to make you into a sort of a giant. Please give my very best to your children and to your husband. Cordially, Norman Rockwell.
Oh, thank you. So now, he did not know what happened to that original photograph. Can you tell me a little bit of the history of that?
It was in actually a plant that made the rivet machines. And the man that bought it at some time had it right in the entryway as you came in. He had it hanging there. And so I don't recall, but anyway, a woman bought it from him, paid quite a bit. I don't remember now what they said. So she had it for quite some time. Then so then this other one bought it. No, that was the woman, yes, she sold it. And then Sotheby's had it for the auction place for sale, and we went down, my husband and I asked to go down for the auction. And that's when it was sold for $3.5 million.
Holy cow, were you going to bid on it?
It went in about 2 seconds. It was, we went in to watch it, and, the hands went up, and this, that, and it was sold.
That must have been quite an experience for you. How did you feel seeing yourself up there as selling for millions of dollars?
That's right. It was something.
Did people around you know who you were?
Yes, because they had asked different people, photographers in, reporters in, and there was two from London, England there, and several in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and they all took turns coming up to ask me questions. And that went on in the morning, and then later on it went into the auction. So that was our day
Now,
there.
do you know what happened to the portrait after it sold at Sotheby's auction?
It went to Colorado. So then, before that, we knew more about it, but after it went out there, I don't know as much about it. But
Now, I know off camera you had mentioned a fire, or that somebody thought it was in a fire. What was that about?
he had when he was living in Arlington, they had built a studio there for him, and one day it burnt to the ground, and he lost a lot of paintings. And Norman Rockwell thought that the Rosie one was in that, but then we found out later it wasn't.
Now, have you seen the original photograph of Rosie the Riveter since Sotheby's?
No, I haven't seen it since.
Have you ever seen an original cover of the Saturday Evening Post?
I have one, the whole
So you finally did get to see yourself.
Yes, yeah.
Right now, historically, I understand that there were some other anniversary dates. On the 50th anniversary of, was it the painting of Rosie the Riveter or the end of the war?
The war.
What did you do?
Well, first off, I was asked the Good Morning America. It was on a Sunday morning, so my husband and I were down at New York for that. And while we were there, Jay Leno's woman called there, and she said, asked if I could fly out and be on his program because I was already in New York, and so that's what we did.
So you were on Good Morning America and Jay Leno? Have you been on any other television
No,
shows?
that was it.
Do you have any other claim to fame?
No.
And I understand that there was an anniversary of some kind in Stockbridge that you participated
Yes,
in?
Peter Rockwell, that's his oldest son. He and his wife lived in Paris. He's a sculptor. He does sculpturing. And they were over here, and they went different places, different parts of the country. I know it was Chicago, New York, and and they ended up at the Stockbridge at the end of it, and that's when they had the big celebration. It was just...
And this was around 2000, you said?
I think so, about that, yeah.
And what was that celebration like?
Well, when they called and asked if I could, come for the weekend, it was going to be there, and asked my whole family could come, and for the weekend, and it was to celebrate the picture of the painting of Rosie, and actually, as you got to to Stockbridge, at the museum, they had a huge big picture of the Rosie, a banner like, out as you walked in. So then they had in the parade they had all the different ones dressed as Rosie as we went along in the parade.
Oh, so you were in the parade. Did you dress as Rosie?
No, my husband and I sat in the car, but it was a nice weekend.
Now, was the original portrait there for that anniversary?
No.
Just the banner. What other things did they do at that anniversary? Because it was a whole weekend affair?
They had just the parade, and they had a huge big tent, and they had a big cocktail party and dinner, and so that went on all day.
Now, have you been in touch with the Rockwells at all?
No, I
since
haven't.
then?
No.
Can you remember any other memorable experiences from during the wartime, or anything relating to your role as Rosie the Riveter after the war?
Actually, talking about that, I've been in touch with two of the boys, Peter and another one. I can't remember his name. But I talked to them, and of course they went to school in Arlington, so we talked about that.
Now, did your children know Norman Rockwell's children?
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh, the party.
Now, there was a party in Stockbridge while you were there?
That whole weekend. They had the parade and everything. And Peter Rockwell talked. He was like an MC. He talked to the people before the affair and that night, and talked about his father and his work. So That was nice.
Now, Mary, you had said that your uncle served as a model for Rockwell on the Four Freedoms. Was he a model for all four freedoms?
Yes,
What can you tell me about that?
actually, and he was, and one of them, his whole body, and the others was like his face, and different parts of looking. One was he was standing with his supposedly the wife, looking at the baby and young child in the bed. That was one of them. Another one was freedom of worship, and it was different people from Arlington, but his part was in all of them.
What was his name?
James Martin,
Can you spell that last name?
Martin, Martin.
Now, why was he chosen? Do you know why Norman Rockwell chose him for those four freedoms?
Because he did a great deal of work for them. Because when his studio burnt, he was the one that had the men working for him, and they constructed the studio again. And he also, when they first came up there and bought this beautiful farm right near the river, he did a lot of work in the house, reconstructing different parts of it and remodeling. So Norman Rockwell just would see somebody and he'd get an idea and he'd just ask you. That's the way he worked.
Wow. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't covered?
I can't think of.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your interview, and now we will just talk to your daughter, Mary Ellen, for a couple minutes and see what it was like for the daughter of Rosie the Riveter.
Thank you.